Circle Time Magazine is a professional development talk show for early childhood educators. This show gives real-world examples of teaching and learning in a variety of early childhood education settings. Ideas for using appropriate and accessible materials. Every episode has tips and methods for you to try out too.
Hi, and welcome to Circle Time Magazine. I'm one of your hosts, Dawn Williams.
And I'm Kristen Ainsley, and we are happy you're here with us today, joining our Circle Time. This is our last episode in our positive behavioral support series. So all season long, we've been laying the foundation for positive behavioral supports to help children.
That's right. We've spent time talking about relationships, supportive environments and routines, emotional literacy and regulation, and targeted strategies to help support children's social emotional skills.
Right, so we've also talked about problem solving and friendship skills, and we've really taken a good look at our own personal biases and how that affects how we see challenging behavior.
The research tells us that all of these topics are essential preventative skills to have in place before we create highly individualized supports.
Right, so there are times definitely with all of our preventative strategies that we still need some extra individualized supports for just a few children in our program, in our care, and so that's what we're going to talk about today.
So first we are going to reflect and discuss about what are challenging behaviors.
Right, we're going to watch a video of and look at the function of a child's behavior who is demonstrating some challenging behaviors, and we're going to try to figure out what he's trying to communicate with his behavior.
And then we'll also create a behavior support plan.
Hi everyone, it's time to welcome our first guest, Jordan Tiding Fong. Jordan is going to help us to understand what challenging behavior really is and ways to support ourselves and our children as we kind of work through strategies. Welcome, Jordan.
Hello. Hi, it's good to be back.
So good to have you.
Yeah.
So we know that part of what you do for your job is actually go in and provide technical assistance to teachers who are struggling with some challenging behaviors, like you were just doing this today.
Yep.
So when you are having those conversations, how do you provide support? What do you do?
You know, I get called in for that top part of the pyramid. I get called in for those intensive supports to help make a plan that are really individualized, but I always start at the bottom of the pyramid. Because usually by the time I get called in, these behaviors have been happening for a while and that relationship might be affected, right?
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure that we start with relationships. What is that like in the classroom? How's their community? Is the kid a part of the community? And then thinking about, did we teach some social skills? What have we done already? What have we tried to do? That middle part of the pyramid before we get to the tip top of the pyramid. Because we need those strong practices in place to support us even if we do get to that top part of the pyramid.
Strong foundation.
Exactly.
It's that piece that all kids get, right? That bottom part of the pyramid, all kids get that piece. And then some kids will need a little bit more than that. Maybe some individual social skills instruction, maybe, you know, some groups around those sorts of skills. And then there's a very few amount of kids that are going to need that really high level of individualized support. So I always want to start from the bottom and work my way up, because a lot of times a lot of our issues can be solved with those bottom parts of the pyramid first.
Right, like 1 to 2 kids in the class.
Right. I mean, it's so intensive that you really can't have 6, 7, 8 kids in your class on a plan, right? It's not possible.
No.
So how can we change the whole environment to make it work so that you really do only have a few kids?
A few kids who really do need that extra. Okay, that sounds good. So when we're thinking about those few kids who need that extra intensive supports, how are we defining challenging behavior?
Well, the challenging behavior I get called in for is most often the behavior that's most challenging to the adults in the room, right?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've all been there.
Yes.
It's when the classroom management is hard, when a kid might be having some meltdowns, it's really loud, externalizing
My
behaviors.
the one that makes me look like I'm not doing a good job.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
ones that like kind of get us to our wits' end, right?
Yes.
Those
Right.
big externalizing behaviors.
Okay.
And I get called in for those, and those often also end in some challenging behaviors from the adults, which is suspension and expulsion.
Yes, those are adult behaviors, aren't they?
Yes, so it's an
Absolutely.
adult behavior in response to some challenging kid behaviors, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
You're in a tough spot when you're called in for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Trying to figure out, and it's really about supporting the team and the kid, right?
Yes. Yes.
So when we're thinking of making that plan for teachers and students, we want to create a shared definition for challenging behavior.
Yes.
Right? What is it that we're talking about so that we can figure out where to start from with that? The one that I use the most often is that challenging behavior is any repeated pattern of behavior that interferes with or is at risk of interfering with the child's optimal learning or engagement in pro-social interactions with peers and adults.
Okay.
A lot said in that definition.
Yeah, it's a lot of words, and it's a lot. There is a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think one of the things that it's important for us to do is reflect on those words and unpack it. What's an optimal learning environment for me may not be the same as what's an optimal learning environment for you, right? And so as a teacher, what I find to be a challenging behavior may differ than from what you find to be a challenging behavior, right? So really having that conversation so we can see where our beliefs and our biases and our culture impact how we're defining what's challenging in our classrooms, right? Which means that some of the behaviors might be short-term, some might be long-term, some might be infrequent, and some might be really frequent. They look different. It just depends on how it's impacting the classroom and impacting the individual student.
Right.
Okay.
And the other children in the classroom.
And the
too,
other
whole
children in the
culture
classroom, the culture of the
Yeah.
classroom,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
So we can focus on strengthening the base of the pyramid for most children, and that will be enough to support them. But what can we do when we get to the top for those very few children?
Right. You know, a few kids will need more. You're right, that all kids we got that some kids we've got, and then a few kids are gonna need that top part of the pyramid. And there are specific intervention strategies. When I go in, I'll do a functional behavior assessment, I'll do a behavior intervention plan. There's the other individualized strategies that we can do, but there's a few things that everyone can do regardless of your experience with challenging behaviors or assessment.
That you do first.
That you can do first, yeah.
Okay.
One of the first things you can do is reflect.
Okay.
And really thinking about, like we said before, why is it challenging for you?
Right.
Why is it challenging for that child? Is it something that's we need a plan for right away because maybe they're running out of the building? It's only happened twice. It's not very frequent, but we need a plan for it right now.
Right.
Right.
It's very, very intense when it happens.
Right. Or
Okay.
maybe it's something that's been more ongoing, like it's the kid who comes to circle and sits down but doesn't ever participate and isn't listening, so is never really getting access to it.
Right.
So they're not learning, right? It's also a challenging behavior.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And when we have that reflection time, it helps us think about where some of our biases might lie, what we believe about behavior, what we believe about discipline, because we all believe something different. And it helps us to work on shifting our perspective, right? A lot of this work is about shifting our perspective and recognizing that challenging behavior is the kid trying to tell us something.
Right.
Yes.
And it's a lack of
Communicating a
skill,
message.
right? So what do I need to teach them? And then you can review. So what have you already done? Did those strategies work? If you felt like they only worked for a little while, what might have changed, right? Reconsider that bottom part of the pyramid. Do I have a relationship with this kid? Has it gotten to a point where we're avoiding each other? Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Which impacts our relationships.
Yeah.
Because when we get to the top, we want to make sure that that strong foundation is there to hold us up and so that we can keep going and supporting that child. Because it's hard and it's not going to work right away.
Right.
So we have to get to a point where we're invested in it and we've made a plan and we've tried a lot of other things as well.
Well, yeah, so when you're using and when teachers are using those strategies at the top of the pyramid, it can feel so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because you feel like I've tried all these things, I don't know, but this is getting a little more intensive supports. It can feel so overwhelming. It can be hard for the child who might be, getting in trouble, getting punished for their behavior. It's hard for the teacher. He or she might feel, do I have these skills, right?
Yeah.
It just feels, so it seems like practicing some breathing, some resiliency is really important for teachers to kind of carry on through this process.
Absolutely. I think resiliency is really important for this work because challenging behavior is one of the number one reasons that teachers identify the reason why they burn out.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
When we feel like we're failing.
Yes.
And oftentimes when I go in to support teachers, you are secluded, you're doing your own thing, you're not seeing other people teach, you're having a day-to-day where it's really hard and you feel like you're unsuccessful. So I think the first thing is just owning that it's hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also understanding that it isn't just you.
Right.
It's all of us, right? Everyone has these experiences with kids, right?
Yes. Experienced teachers, new teachers.
Yes, absolutely. I think another thing you can do to support your resiliency is what people are doing right now by watching this, right? So doing some professional development, reaching out, looking for more resources, because it's going to build your skills, which we all feel more confident. One of the recommendations I make for kids right away if they have challenging behaviors is what's a skill we can teach them so they feel more confident. It's the same for us as adults, right? And changing our perspective that, again, this behavior is working for this child. How can I make something else work for them, right? And it allows us to be lifelong learners, right? I really go into this work thinking that I am continuing to learn as I go through it. And it would be really boring if I knew everything at this point. It's not possible, so let's keep learning, right?
That's the fun of it, really.
And then my last recommendation is to always have a go-to activity to do when things are really hard.
A go-to happy one?
A go-to happy activity, find your joy activity.
Okay, what was yours, Jordan?
Mine was a dance party.
Okay.
And we would scrap our lesson plan for the day when it was real rough and have a dance party with strobe light, boombox, the whole nine. So, but it's part of finding your joy in it again because we work with little kids and school should be fun, and we should be happy. And we get when we get into the nitty gritty of this work, we forget that.
Right.
So what is the thing we can do to bring that joy back into the classroom?
It also takes you back to the relationships, right?
Absolutely.
We're connecting through something fun.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
And Jordan, so appreciate all these key messages. Our perspectives and culture impact how we view challenging behavior.
Right. I mean, this pyramid includes strategies that support all children and adults when behaviors can get challenging. So really focusing on that pyramid.
And when you're in that, we're trying to figure out an intensive, challenging behavior. First thing you can do is reflect, review, and then build some resilience, because you'll need that too.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, guys.
We are very excited to have Dr. Gail Joseph on. She used to be a teacher, and now she teaches teachers. Welcome, Gail.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome. Hey, Gail, we've been talking a lot about the pyramid through this whole season. We're kind of at the peak now.
I know.
What can a teacher do with a child who has really more intensive, challenging behaviors?
Right, so we're talking about at the top of that pyramid when we're going to really be thinking about developing individualized behavior support plans. And I love what your other guest Jordan was saying about just kind of remembering and reflecting on kind of the bottom pieces of the pyramid. And I would just really re-emphasize that that's where we always want to start. We just want to make sure that we've got relationships going, that we have all of these classroom prevention strategies that we've talked a lot about throughout our series, and that we're really intentionally teaching social and emotional skills. And if all of that's in place and a child is still engaging in some persistent patterns of challenging behavior that aren't just challenging because we find them challenging, but are seriously interrupting that child's ability to form relationships with adults and with peers, and really interrupting their ability to learn, then we really want to start thinking about some more intensive individualized behavior supports for that child.
Okay, so where do you begin with that?
One of the things that we want to start with is to really understand what the function of the challenging behavior is. And I think that Jordan had talked about that when we think about challenging behavior, we think about a form and we think about a function. And the form is really just what the behavior is, right? The form could be hitting or spitting or kicking, using complete sentences. The form is really just maybe words we don't appreciate. Yeah, it's just like what it looks like. That's the form. And the more important thing is really the function or the message, the purpose, what it's serving for the child, right? How it's getting what it's getting for the child when they engage in that. And so no matter what, if we come up with a behavior support plan that only addresses the form and doesn't address the function, you're just going to see continued challenging behavior.
Right. Okay, so we need to address the function.
We need to address the function. And the other thing that I want to say is that if you have a child that we're at the top of the pyramid, like there's a lot of support and resources to help you as well. So remembering that we want to engage our coach with extra support, or thinking about a referral process, like all of that becomes, you know, there's a team that's in place to help support you.
Because it can feel alone, right? You're the only teacher, and you
Right.
feel like, is anyone else feeling this way? Does anyone else
Right.
have these issues in their classroom? Who's my people to help?
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. So, but let's just talk through what it might look like to
Great.
do a behavior support plan, because there are some behavior support plans that you can do even by yourself, and we do them all the time. And probably the things that we're going to talk about are things that teachers do every day, but we're just going to kind of put it into a form that will help us understand all the different components. So like I was saying, the first thing to do is figure out the function. And the way that we figure out the function of the challenge behavior is we solve what we would call the behavior equation.
Okay.
I know
I
it's
like
very
it.
fancy. I like
Yes.
to say that. But so the behavior equation has 3 components to it. It has the antecedent, or sometimes we think about it as just what happens before, right? What
Okay.
happens right before that kind of set up that challenge behavior. What is the form of the behavior? So what's that behavior? What does it look like?
Okay.
And then we have what happens right after, right? What's the consequence? So one easy way to remember that is ABC. The antecedent, that's
Okay.
what happens before. The behavior, that's the B. And then the consequence, right? So what happens right after? And that's not what we want to have happen necessarily, but it's just that, like, how does it currently work in the classroom setting? So we're going to look at the ABCs. And then the ABCs are going to help us come up with our very best guess, or our hypothesis about what the function of that behavior is, right?
Okay.
What is the purpose that that behavior is serving for that child? So one of the things that we would do to kind of come up with this behavior equation is actually do some observation. And one of the things we have here are some observation cards.
Excellent.
And they have A, B, C, so the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. And what I love about these cards that you all have come up with is that they're laminated, so you can use them over and over again, right? So you don't have to keep writing things down. And so I thought we should give this a try.
Okay.
So we're going to watch a couple videos of a little boy in a classroom. He's wearing a red shirt. And I want you to just write down, you know, what happens right before, what the behavior is, and then what you see happening right after. And then maybe we'll all give our best guess of what we think the function is.
Okay.
Okay? So you
Okay.
ready?
Yes, we're
Pens
ready.
are ready?
Pens are ready.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's give this a look.
All right.
Did you have a Coke? Wow! Uh-oh, you're too high. Yeah. What are you doing? And some guys close the door, and that guy rolled back, and he ran. He ran out. Can you get Crab and Ball? What's going on here? What is going on? You know what? Yes, I heard it. Hey, what do you think? Well, no, all right, little tiny feet. Well, if I find more. Is that better? Let me try it now, baby. She's scared to go one up, and the other one's I'm coming. Stop doing that! Yeah, he's on my shoulder.
So the antecedent that I saw was our little friend there in the block area. He gets closer to some of the children in the block area. Okay, the behavior that I saw was that he first sort of sticks out his tongue, maybe blows a raspberry, and then he scratches one of the child's shoulders, right? He really, he had some challenges there.
Right.
Then the consequence was that the little boy yelled at him. Another boy brought him another toy, but that wasn't quite resolved.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay, so I have a little hypothesis. I'm
Okay, good.
thinking he really wanted what that child had.
Yeah.
So he wanted to get something.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, that was my best guess.
Yeah, I think that video that we saw outside was pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
So she had the truck, the little boy wanted to go get it.
Yep.
He went and tried to grab it from her, so the antecedent was noticing that he wanted that toy.
Okay.
Then he goes over there and he tries to take it from her, and then there's a little bit of a tussle, and they are unhappy.
Yes.
And then one of the children are left hurt and mad because they don't have that toy anymore. So in this one, I think the function is trying to obtain a toy as well.
Okay.
Great. So we've
Yeah.
seen two from the same boy, and we start to see a pattern.
Yeah.
And what was great is that you talked about the function in terms of obtaining or getting. He wants to get something, he wants to obtain something.
Right.
And that's usually what we think about with the function. We usually define it in two different ways. It's
Okay.
either to get something or to get away from something, to escape. So we can talk about like obtaining or escaping. And we try and think about, is this something that they're trying to, is the function of the behavior to obtain a toy or attention or social interaction or just some stimulation. And then we might also think about, or is this function to escape a loud noise, escape an activity I find too hard, escape an activity I find too boring, escape an aversive demand to stop doing something I like to do. So, so we really, it's pretty simple. It's just thinking about, is this to get something or is this to get away from something? And that's usually what the function is.
Yep.
So, so of course, beautiful job. You're very experienced at this.
Okay.
But it does really help to observe. So even if
Yeah.
you really know, every time there's a child that engages in challenge behavior, it helps to kind of sit back and or videotape if you can, or have
Yeah.
somebody come in the room and cover for a little bit while you can just write those things down, because there's little
Yeah.
things you might not notice if you were just kind of recollecting. You might not notice that
Right.
that you maybe over time you notice that, like, oh, it's not just that he wants a toy, but he wants the same toy as what his
Right,
friend's
right.
playing with, right? So you'll start to see some things there.
Yeah, maybe your coach can help you take the time out to observe.
Oh, great idea. They
Yeah.
could come in and cover. It's a great idea. So, so once we come up with the function of the behavior, so we have the antecedent behavior, consequence, and then our hypothesis or the function, then coming up with the behavior support plan is actually relatively simple.
Okay.
So again, you don't have to do it all alone. You can get some support and help and things. But I want to just show you how simple I kind of think the best behavior support plans are.
Okay.
So they're not just a blank slate, but there's actually something on here, and so I'm going to draw that for you right now.
Okay.
So one of the things that we did, because this is how simple they are, you could do it on a whiteboard, is that we came up with the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence, right, of this child's behavior. So we kind of think about those being the top of our behavior support plan. So what happens before in general that kind of gets this child set up, I guess.
Yeah.
What is the behavior that they engage in or behaviors? And then what typically happens afterwards? And then someplace in here, we're just going to write down what our best guess is, right? Our hypothesis or the function. So, and remember, we think about that as either they want to get something
Yeah.
or get attention,
Yeah.
get something, get someone, or they want to avoid or escape something or
Okay.
someone.
Okay.
And then at the bottom of this is what I'm going to call PTR.
Okay.
And that is, the P is for prevention strategies. So if this is what sets the child off, how can we put in place some prevention strategies that might reduce the likelihood that the child's going to respond to that antecedent in the first place, right? So we might, and how do we make that behavior irrelevant or,
Right.
right? And then we might think about teaching. What do we want to do for the child to do instead, right? So you both identified for that little boy, Tim, you both identified that he's trying to obtain something, right? That function was to get a toy. So what might we want him to do instead? We might want him to
Maybe
ask.
Yes,
Yeah.
like find a healthy way to ask.
Right, great. Request a turn, right? So that's what we would put in the teach part. And then the R is for responses. And so when we think about how we're going to respond, we think about two different things. We think about how are we going to respond when the child uses their new skill, right?
Okay.
And I think what we want to do is make sure that that new skill always gets him what he wants.
Right. We
Always
need it to work
initially,
for a
right?
turn?
Yeah.
Okay.
You ask for a turn, you get a turn.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And eventually we might kind of teach them to wait a little bit longer, but initially that response needs to be as efficient and as effective as that challenge behavior was. And then, speaking of that, the other response that we're going to think about is, what do we do when the child engages in the challenge behavior? And the secret to these behavior support plans is that that challenge behavior really can no longer get the child's needs met.
Right.
So we always need to respond in a way that doesn't let that challenge behavior serve the same function.
Right. It can't work anymore.
Right. So we might prompt them to use their new strategy. We might give them a choice. We might send them back, and we might even go back to prevention strategies.
Right.
So let's just do a little bit of brainstorming
Okay.
here, and thinking about what we thought about with our friend in the red is we kind of came up with what happens. It's usually group play.
Yeah.
So during group play times.
Right.
Tim, our friend in the red shirt, Tim usually, he might engage in aggressive behavior. So we saw hitting,
Yeah.
kicking, screaming,
Scratching,
scratching.
right.
So engages in aggressive behavior. And that usually is, usually what happens after is he gets the toy
Right.
or he gets attention or something. And so we really thought that the function was to get something, right? So the function in this little box would be to get something or get a toy. And you can see that we actually have a slide of that. And so what might we do for prevention strategies if we just brainstormed here? What might help to prevent Tim from even kind of getting triggered,
Right.
if you will?
Well, he always seems to want something that someone else has. So maybe we need multiple items of that.
Great idea. So making sure that there are multiple of the same toy.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a big thing, especially for toddlers, right?
Oh,
like
yes.
A great prevention strategy is to have, 2 or more of the same toy.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I
a
want
lot.
what I want, and then I also want what you have
Yeah.
at all times.
Right.
Right.
Kristen, what would you
Well,
think?
I'm wondering, I don't know enough about him yet, but maybe trying just having something right in every area that he really likes, sort of the outside area, the block area, maybe a little picture that might say, first I ask, then I get a toy, maybe just a
Right.
two-step first, then.
Yeah, so just using some visual
bit of-
support and that, I love that, like first then, because then if he does engage in that challenge behavior, one of our responses might be to kind of point to that,
Yeah.
or even, right, like
Remember.
first you ask, then
Yeah.
you get it. Okay, great.
Right.
We
Anything
might,
else
we
you're so
might do
good at
some
this?
role playing or practicing at circle time.
Nice.
About how we ask a friend for a toy or
Right.
how we share something.
Yeah.
Right. I love that idea, Dawn, because it's getting at both not only Tim, like building some strategies for him and how to ask for a toy, but it's also a nice role play for children of how to respond. So when someone asks for a turn, we give them a turn. And then we can ask for a turn back, right? Because what we need to do is create some support so that the peers know how to respond to Tim too when he engages.
Yes, we
Yes.
want them to be able to give it up when he's asking so nicely.
Right,
No, like
First
not the
learning, right?
easiest thing to do in
No.
preschool classrooms,
Yeah.
but we just need to really celebrate and acknowledge when children do that.
Yeah.
So great, so you got it. So you would write those prevention strategies down. We'd think about new ways for Tim to behave. So maybe he's going to request a turn. If Tim doesn't yet have verbal words, maybe it's just a picture where he can request a turn,
Right.
Or he can just gesture my turn. And then again, we're going to think about new responses. So whenever he asks for a turn at first, he's going to get a turn, right? And then eventually we're going to teach him some ways to delay that. And then every time he engages in challenging behavior, hopefully we've prevented it, but when he does, it can no longer get his needs met, right? We're going to have to like prompt him back to, I love that idea of prompting him back to the picture, or saying, use your words, kind of prompting him back. And then as soon as he does get his needs met. So that's it, like super simple behavior support plan.
doable.
It is doable, right? It's like a whiteboard.
It
you
really
can
is. It
fill it in.
demystifies sort of the whole big behavior support plan, and especially if somebody can, just like you said, that team, if you can get somebody else to just let you observe it, and that's such a key part of it.
Yeah, and just noticing.
Right.
You might notice some little things that you
Right.
didn't see before that might be happening there. So that's it, ABC, PTR. is our behavior support plan.
That's fantastic.
That is. That's really going to be helpful for him.
Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome. Thank you. You all did all the work.
Gail, you are here for Try It Out with us.
I am so excited. I've been wanting to be at Try It Out for so long.
Yay.
I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm
Look at all
so
this.
excited. I know. Lots
Yeah.
of great things.
Yes, we have been talking about intensive individualized supports today, and a lot of these things that are here are things that we've talked about throughout the season.
Right.
Because we've got visuals and we've got the candle and the flowers, so you might recognize some things, but you can also use these to support an individual child, and you're going to tell us how.
That is right. So we were talking about developing individualized behavior support plans.
Yes.
And so here we have a lot of great things that might come into play in those behavior support plans that you come up with.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to hand you these, Gail. These really
these
great
are
stickers.
These are amazing. So it looks like these are some Circle Time magazine originals here. So what we love about these is that they're pretty behavior specific stickers, right? So I'm good at problem solving. So if on a behavior support plan we have a child that's really working on problem solving, we can put being good at problem solving. I shared my toy. Love that. So the child's working on that. I made a good choice. I took a deep breath. I love that. Teachers can use that too.
Yes,
I
yes.
I
I want a
should
sticker.
give myself.
Right,
I know. I felt like
exactly.
I did
I'm
that
just thinking
today.
I might need to put one on.
That's right. I gave a friend a compliment today. I used my turtle shell. So we talked about the turtle
Fantastic.
technique. I
Yes.
found a solution. I love this idea. I found a solution to my problem.
Yeah.
I controlled my anger. That is worthy of a sticker
It sure
or
is.
two.
Absolutely it is.
And so the idea here is that they're pretty specific to a lot of things that we might be writing on a behavior support plan. And you can give these to children. What I love about them is that not only is it sometimes fun to get a sticker when you have really worked hard at something, but they communicate a message. So it's a great way for parents, for family members, when they're the recipients of their children at the end of the day, that they know what the child did.
That would be
did
so
well that
nice,
day, right?
right?
You give
Yeah.
a compliment. Tell me what you did. How did you
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
right? So that is a really fun thing to
Great.
have.
Family School Bridge.
Yes.
Okay, we've got all of these great visual supports.
I love this. So
and
I'm going to
different
take
kind of
yeah.
topics here.
Exactly. So these are feeling face cards, right?
Right.
So here's the different feelings that we have. So there's proud, there's mad, there's sad. And one of the things that you might have on an individual behavior support plan is for a child to identify emotions and express them in a healthy way. But
Right.
we do know that we need to name it to tame it, as we say. So you need to have the name for the emotion and then work on regulation. So these are things that you might want to have portable,
Yeah.
if you will.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
love that they're on a little metal ring. You're going to use these, grab them, and help a child identify how they're feeling in that moment, so that they know if they need to regulate or calm down, right? So
That's
love
great.
that.
Great.
Just put them up anywhere, really, with
That's
that.
right.
Yep.
Okay, these are awesome. So this is like a portable solution kit.
Okay.
So we love this because those solution kits are going to be something that almost all the children are going to be using at some point. But my guess is that if you're developing an individualized behavior support plan, that you have a child that probably is going to really need to have some individual supports in their own solution kit.
Yes,
So this
yes.
could be the child's own solution kit that
Okay.
they could carry around with them, or
Okay.
it could be something that you have hanging around the room, multiples of, that you would be
Yeah.
putting around the room so that it's always accessible. You can always grab it. Teachers can have them with them at all times. And so one of the things that's usually a solution that we put into solution kits is getting a timer, setting a timer, asking for a turn. And so before you hand me another visual, let's
Yeah.
just say that this is a great thing.
So big and visual. I love that.
Love this. So this is a real big and visible sand timer, as you said. So it is nice for children to be able to see. I love that this one is a 5-minute timer. So that's a nice amount of time for, you can have it in 5 minutes or a 5-minute warning. So it's a great way to give an individual child kind of what we would call that safety signal, right? In 5 minutes, it's going to be time for cleanup. And so they can see the time going by. So I love that.
That's great. That goes right with that.
solution kit.
Okay, so let's put some of these. So this one, I think it's
Emotional
regulation.
regulation, exactly. So these are slightly different than the solution kit, and one that might be paired with the emotion recognition cards is that when I'm starting to feel uncomfortable, when I have a feeling that is, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm mad. These are some different ideas of what I can do to kind of calm down, right? When I'm feeling upset and agitated. So I might listen to music, I might find a quiet place, might hug something, oh, that feels good. Slow, deep breaths. I might blow some bubbles.
You might blow some bubbles, some bubbles.
Speaking of which, we've got some bubbles here. This is a great, I feel like when I teach, I have bubbles with me at all times.
Right.
So I have a necklace and a pocket because children can use bubbles to calm down. You can use bubbles to encourage children to make a transition. So blow some bubbles. Here's some bubbles. One of the things might be to smell a flower and blow out the candle. So these are nice visual reminders for children, right, to make it a little bit more concrete. Okay.
That's fantastic.
All right.
These are transitions.
Lovely. So we talked about the importance of using visuals for helping children to make transitions, and some children would really benefit by having their own special transition cue cards, right? So that you can say, oh, we're getting in line, and we can put the, we can point to the picture of it so that the child knows what's coming next, they know what's going to happen next, and that might be a really great support for an individual child as well.
Gail, what about helping children with those social skills? So really kind of promoting those positive social skills after we're having a challenging behavior.
That's
we might need to help make some friends
That's
again.
right.
Yeah.
So these are great. These are what we would call friendship loops.
Okay.
And I love these. So these actually come out of a study that was done at the University of Oregon, and they're called friendship loops. And what we would do with these is that they're a great one for outside when things are a little bit less structured. I know that when I was a teacher outside, I tended to kind of just put my safety goggles on in a way. I'm just be looking for hazards and managing behaviors. Or sometimes I maybe was talking with my colleague about what we're going to do next, all of those things. And I don't think that I always was looking for friendship behaviors and positive social skills. This helps you to focus on those because as a teacher, you might put a few of these in a pocket or something, and it's going to be a reminder for you to start catching children being good, really. Catch children that are engaged in those friendship behaviors, those friendship skills that we want to see happen. When you see it happen on the playground, just slip it on their wrist. It's pretty fun to get a friendship bracelet.
Oh my goch, yes.
Doesn't interrupt their play. It's not, we don't have to draw something on or give them a certificate or anything like that. They can just keep on playing. Great recognition. And then what we would do is that when children would come in from outside, we would have a big jar and they would drop those in the jar. And then when we filled it, we would all have a little party or a celebration or something. So it could be used for an individual child, but all children could get them, right? I might just be, my eyes might be trained more on a certain child in terms of making sure that catch them when they're using that new skill that we've taught them. But all children can benefit. And not every day needs to be a friendship loop day or they get a little bit old. So it's just once in a while, friendship loops, use them inside, outside. It's great.
Love that.
Everybody's encouraged to be friends.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I love these, and these could be they could be for children as an emotion regulation piece, right? So I need to kind of calm down, got some stress, gotta get it out. Also great for teachers, right? So getting through some tough days, tough meetings, we can use these. We always need something like this.
Yes.
All right.
That's good.
Okay, so what else do we have here? This.
Yes.
You're wondering what this is.
Yes.
It's pretty fun.
Okay.
It's like a little golf counter.
Yeah.
And so the idea with this, you could use it in a couple ways. So one thing is that it could be that I'm going to count the number of times a child is using a positive behavior so that I can get a good count every day and see if my behavior support plan is working.
Yeah.
Is their positive behavior increasing?
Okay.
I might count the challenging behaviors to see if those are decreasing over time. So it's a good just kind of like quick way to count things without having to like carry around a clipboard or anything like that. The other way that you might use these is to challenge your co-teacher to a little positive attention, little
challenge,
contest.
little game, yeah.
So I would be collecting data on you, Kristen. So when I saw you attending to positive behavior, I might be giving you a mark, and then you might be giving one to me. And then at the end, we can compare. We can set goals. We can say together we want to get to 100, whatever it is. But it's just like a nice visual reminder of, I need to be changing my behavior too in order to support the children's behavior. And often it's about us making sure that we're catching children with their positive behaviors. Yeah, so that's the golf encounter.
I love that.
All right.
Okay, one more little ring here. We've got a friendship kit.
Yeah.
This kind of goes along, I think, with
Yes, exactly.
maybe the friendship loops.
Right.
Or
So when we want to help children, one of the things that might go on a behavior support plan is that we are going to be increasing their friendly behaviors. And so these are some little ideas for a child about what they can do for friendship. So we could ask, are they okay? Are they all right? Right? If we notice a friend feeling sad, or if maybe we did something on accident, we can ask if they're okay. We can ask a friend if they want a hug. Yeah, nice way. Yes, I love what you say, Kristen, teaching empathy there. Hey, do you want a high five, right? So lots of ideas about how to be a good friend. Okay, last but not least is probably my favorite thing that is
happening
on
over
this
here.
table is that I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things when I was teaching is to have a fanny pack.
Okay.
And I just feel like every teacher needs a good fanny pack. I'm gonna put this one on. Click it and fill it. So one of the things you might notice, other than the timer, probably everything we've talked about can fit in this fanny pack. Because when you are developing a behavior support plan for an individual child, you need to have it portable because you never know when you're going to need to pull these strategies out of the packs, right? So we can get the stickers in here. Let's help fill it up.
Okay, bubbles.
The bubbles. Always have bubbles. Stress relievers here. Reminders.
On the ring.
Yeah, totally. You can stick these in here. You can stick it on.
Ooh, look at the flower fits in there.
Nice. That is great. Can remember to smell the flower. Friendship loop. I love this.
Keep them
you could
coming.
give
Look at how
yourself
much
a
room is in
friendship
there.
loop challenge, right? So you could put a different number in here every day, or you could surprise your colleague. You could stick a bunch in there and say your challenge is to get rid of these all day, right? So that it gets them thinking about finding those positive behaviors.
I'd love to make that kind of into a challenge or a game to keep up that teamwork around this
Super
really
fun.
sometimes hard kind of thing to do as a teacher. So I love that kind of fun.
very
Let's make it a
fun.
game. Let's
When you've got
encourage
everyone,
each other.
working on giving away behavior loops or friendship loops, it turns the culture around pretty quick. So all these things, our little friendship kit,
Stickers. Did we get some stickers
this
in
will
there?
probably
We got
keep
some
on our
stickers in there.
hand there. Probably not the play script, but you probably keep that in the dramatic play area. But everything else, you can just fit it right in, and there you go, a behavior support plan in a pack.
That is brilliant.
I love that. Thank you, Gail.
I'm ready.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, so our Let's Make It segment is going to be a little bit different today. So today we're going to show you something called a social story, right? So we've created this social story to help our friend Tim. So social stories are created by Carol Gray, and really they're simple, short, repetitive stories that are written from the child's perspective. They're individualized, really highly individualized for a child, and they're designed as a way to teach and support through a new situation or a transition or a new activity, or even for home, like for a life change or life transition, like moving. All right, so this is an example of one that we've written for Tim. So this is about sharing. This is called I Can Share and Take Turns. And in this story, it can be individualized just for him.
Yep.
It's written exactly what the problem is, what he can do about it, and then it always ends with something really positive. School is fun when we share and take turns. So this could be something that a teacher might read to him every day,
Yeah.
right? He might go grab it himself and read it and look at it. So it's a really supportive way for that specific situation.
Oh, that's fantastic support for Tim.
Hello, everyone. We are back with children's librarian Blythe. Hello, Blythe. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. Hi.
Hello.
Well, we're so glad to be here talking to you today because we've been talking a bit about challenging behaviors, just the few children in the classroom that have some really tough ones. And so we wanted to highlight some things to counteract that, some resiliency and persistence type books that can help children focus on what you can do afterwards and strategies to do to calm down, and to also highlight some individual strengths.
Absolutely. So the books I've got here are about perseverance, resiliency, and individuality.
Perfect.
This first one is called The Most Magnificent Thing. This is about a little girl who in fact wants to invent the most magnificent thing.
I would think of that as a STEM book.
It is a STEM book, yes. And things go wrong.
Okay.
And
she's angry.
She gets angry, she gets frustrated, things aren't going her way. But what I really love about this book is that it shows how she calms down, regroups, and starts her planning over again. And in the end, we've got a magnificent invention that she's created. So I love that. I love the persistence.
Yeah, she keeps trying. I love that kind of message.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay.
This is Bounce Back, a great book about resiliency. It's not as much a story as it is a straightforward look at some strategies for kids to bounce back when things don't go their way.
Okay.
Well, and then once you've figured out what the new replacement behavior is, what to do, then this is a way to kind of reinforce that. These are the new things I can do. I know how to recover. I can bounce back.
I can bounce back. Great.
And this is Pete the Cat.
I love Pete the Cat.
Everybody loves Pete the Cat.
Yes.
I particularly love his attitude. And that's what's so great about this book. Pete keeps stepping in something and turning his shoes different colors. But does Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Everything's cool, he says.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
And that's his
so
attitude
right.
through the whole book. It's okay when things change or when things go wrong.
And you embrace the new.
Yeah, that's right. My red shoes
Absolutely.
is just fine.
That's fine.
Good.
Yes, and this is Hoot and Peep. Hoot's little sister Peep just isn't gonna hoo-hoo in the proper way. She's got her own ideas about what sound she wants to make. Shweebity Peep.
Oh, little Peep.
This book looks at how we can make space for everyone to be themselves.
That's great. That individuality piece, right? It's okay if I'm a little bit different. I want to say it a little bit different.
Absolutely. We've all got space. We've got space for everyone to be themselves.
Good.
Yes.
Great.
And finally, we've got some resources for adults.
Okay.
This is socially strong, emotionally secure, 50 activities to promote resiliency in young children. There's other books like this. Every book that you check out for the library does not have to be for the kids. We've got resources for early childhood educators as well on all sorts of subjects.
Did not even think about that.
Right, exactly. I might not think about that as I'm going to my library, that there really is something for me as an educator, as a teacher.
Yeah.
What else is hiding in your library? What other collections do you have that
Right.
people might not know about?
Right. So we've got music CDs, of course.
Great.
And
These are great. All right.
yeah, and that's going to be here in the library. We've got these kits where we've got a book and a CD paired together. The CD is going to read the story aloud to kids. Speaking of stories that we read aloud to kids, we also have book flicks and tumble books on our website. And those are streaming services. You get to see the pictures advance as a voice narrates the story for the children.
Great.
Those are Those are great. I've
Yeah.
seen those. They're
Yeah,
really engaging.
you can access those anywhere you've got some internet access. It's great. And finally, at the Seattle Public Library, we're lucky enough to have this collection called the Begin With Books kits, or the bags that we've got here. And you might just want to investigate and see what's in there.
Absolutely.
It's a story time in a bag.
Story time in
So
a bag.
anyone could just check the whole bag out, ready to go.
Absolutely, yes.
Ready to go.
We've
Different
got
topics.
They're on a variety of different topics geared to preschoolers and also some that are geared to toddlers. They're going to have 5 books on the particular subject, plus an activity guide, a resource guide for the adult, and a music CD as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
What a fantastic resource.
Yeah, this particular one's self-esteem, but we've got all kinds of different topics.
All kinds of different topics.
Wow.
That's amazing. So, Blythe, before we wrap up, what is kind of a big question that people ask you, or what else can a librarian do? Lots of things we know, but
yes, I know. People tend to think of us just about books, but there's a lot of different services and things that we might be able to provide for you. One thing that I really encourage early childhood educators to find out is if their local library has a bookmobile, and if the bookmobile is able to visit in their neighborhood or their site. It's always worth an ask.
Great.
Worth a question.
Bookmobile. Love it.
Yes, and if maybe you're lucky enough to have a library within walking distance or travel distance of your site, and you can bring the kids to a program at the library, ask about story time. Do you have story time? Would it be a good fit if I brought my kids to your story time?
Yeah.
You can also ask a librarian, are you willing to come to my site and deliver story time for us? We love to get out of the building, and it's always worth asking if we can come visit.
Wow.
Travel.
We travel. We love to. Yes, absolutely.
That's really great.
Absolutely. We've got a whole system in place at the Seattle Public Library to answer book recommendations for people. You can, of course, you can come into the library and talk to a librarian in person. You can call us. You can email us. And one of the easiest things to do is to go to our website and find the Ask Us button, and you can ask us a question. And you can ask us a question about anything, but if it's related to children, it's going to go to children's subject specialists working downtown at our library to answer those questions. We love to answer questions about when there's a tricky situation and you need a specific book. We'll see if there's one for the need that you have. We also are happy to help with topic selections. You're focusing on a certain subject and you need some book suggestions. We're happy to provide that. Yeah.
I imagine that's just going to save some time, right? Like, I would love a book list from a librarian who's so knowledgeable and well-resourced.
Right.
Like, that's the book list I want.
Yes, exactly.
And we're here for you. It's our job. And so I always encourage people to meet their children's librarian, introduce yourself, and get that relationship going, because we're here for you.
That's amazing.
Oh, we just want to say it has been invaluable for us to learn what a fantastic community resource librarians are. And everything we've learned from everything else that you can offer over the course of our season here, the book recommendations, all the other resources. It's just a really important and valuable community resource, and we really thank you for your time.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been a real treat to be able to share all these books. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, thank you so much, Blythe. Hello, everyone. We are here for our segment called All About You, and we are back with Gail Joseph. Gail is going to tell us some resiliency strategies to help you bounce back from your busy day. Oh. Hello, Gail.
Hello. Glad I'm still here.
Help us bounce back.
All right, help us bounce back. All right, well, I like to bring you things. And so today I brought a snow globe.
Snow globe.
And the snow globe is, this is our little Seattle snow globe here. And shake it up here. And so I love the snow globe. So the snow globe is actually a strategy you can use every day when you start to feel overwhelmed. So I don't know if you've ever had these experiences. I think I had one about 4 hours ago where you just feel really overwhelmed.
Yes.
You've got a lot going on. There's a lot of stress, a lot of worry. Your to-do list is getting long. Maybe you don't feel well. And all of that is just feeling kind of like you're caught in a worry storm, right? It's just too much stress and anxiety. It just feels like you're caught in a snowstorm.
Okay.
And so when we have those moments, and we have those moments outside of the classroom and in the classroom, right? So the stress from outside the classroom can play out in the classroom, and we can also experience a lot of stress when children are engaged in challenging behavior.
Yes,
absolutely.
And so one of the things we want to do is think about, okay, I'm caught in a little bit of a snowstorm here, a little snowstorm of anxiety and worry.
Right, up in here in my head.
Right, exactly. And I'm like in the snowstorm, and what I want to do is think about just giving myself a mindful break, just a moment to let the snow settle, okay? So it's just, we're caught in the storm. I'm going to have to just keep shaking this for my like little example here, but we're caught, we've got all these thoughts and worries that are just kind of plaguing us and preventing us from moving positively in a direction we want to move in, right? So I know that when I'm caught in the snowstorms, it's hard for me to make some good parenting moves, it's hard for me to make good colleague moves, it's hard for me to make good teaching moves at that moment. So what I want to do is recognize that I'm caught in a snowstorm and then just take a mindful break. So I just want to take some deep breaths. I want to just kind of center myself, right? So one of the things we talk about as being a teacher is finding your concrete shoes, right? So just that, just helping to ground myself again, right? Taking some deep breaths, imagining all of those worries just floating to the bottom, right? And then once we're feeling a little bit calm, we can give ourselves some self-compassion and say, you know what, I got a lot going on. I'm doing the best I can do right now. I'm going to think for a moment about what I might need to do to move forward. Right? Do I need to give an apology? Do I need to get some help? And if nothing else, I can just calmly take my next step. And so that's the snow globe. And so just having a visual reminder that can come to you and say, all right, at this moment, I'm just caught in a little snowstorm here and nothing good's going to happen. Until I take a personal snow day.
Right.
Okay.
Let that snow settle.
Let the snow settle.
I like how you said worry storm. Let that worry storm settle.
Just let it settle for a minute. The other thing to think about is that great strategy for kids too, right? So you can use this with children. Children can make glitter bottles, they can make snow globes, and we can teach them that strategy as well.
Well, and it helps to be able to recognize that you are in that moment. Sometimes you don't even realize it.
Right.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you.
All right, we have come to the end of our time.
It's time to say goodbye.
Yes.
We've learned a lot, though. We have a lot of great things that we filled this episode with.
That's right. So we observed some videos and we were able to write a behavior support plan.
Right. We looked at the function of a child's behavior, what he was trying to communicate to us.
And we have lots of ideas for materials we can use to support an individual child with challenging behaviors.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us. Remember that you can receive STARS credit for this by filling out the evaluation that's on the website next to this episode.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.